There's this guy on Twitter named Michael Rip, Michael.
Yeah.
Rippe.
Oh, the Ripper?
Hey, is that what they call him?
Yes.
Riper?
That's what I believe.
He's some chief
Ripper.
something officer for some Bitcoin. There's this guy on Twitter named Michael Rip, Michael.
Yeah.
Rippe.
Oh, the Ripper?
Hey, is that what they call him?
Yes.
Riper?
That's what I believe.
He's some chief
Ripper.
something officer for some Bitcoin poker.
Good morning and welcome to the morning after football playoff edition. This is wild card weekend of TMA football. Look, we've been doing this all season and it's a pleasure to be back after the playoff round. One has almost completed, right? Because we do have one more game to finish super wild card weekend. I don't know why it's called super. It wasn't too super, to be fair, for really talking about the games. But anyways, we'll get into all of that. My name is Michael Rippe. You can follow me on socials at Michael Rippe. That's on X, Instagram at Mike Rips, and then YouTube. You may be watching live on YouTube or X. Appreciate the support, the follow, subscriptions, notifications turned on. If you have any questions, we'll try to answer it throughout the program this morning of TMA football. Just a few games, a little bit different look at what it looks like on the show compared to every week of the season when we have a whole list of games 2 games this Saturday. We had 3 games yesterday, and of course, the one tonight where we have Minnesota at the LA Rams, played in Arizona, because we want to take a quick second to make sure and share, obviously, as someone that resides in Los Angeles, sending out all my best thoughts and prayers to anyone affected, which there are many, by the tragedies and the devastation in Los Angeles. The fires have been intense, scary, and you just hope that everyone is doing the best that they can. So sending out a heartfelt thought and prayers to everybody in the Los Angeles area that we know somebody, and hopefully good can come from what was so bad. But let's talk football this Monday morning. It is January the 13th, 2025. And the reality is we had a not so great or super wild card weekend. Let's start with our first game of the weekend. Saturday, we saw the LA Chargers, who were favored, go into Houston to take on the Houston Texans. And it looked like it was all Chargers early in the first quarter. They couldn't punch the ball into the end zone. They settled for field goals. They're up 6-0. Looks like late in the second, going into halftime, the Texans are in major trouble. Looks like CJ maybe throws a intentional grounding, doesn't get called, fumbles the snap, picks it up on the run, makes a game-changing play. And ever since that play, it really appeared as though everything was different from the game. It was like the Chargers lost their mojo, or whatever momentum they had. The Texans completely sucked their heart out of their soul and immediately dominated throughout the rest of the game. Justin Herbert throws 4 interceptions, which was more than he threw in the entire regular season. He had 3 in the regular season and 4 in the game. So 2025, already more interceptions for Justin Herbert, 4 than what he had in 2024. And it's only 13 days into the new year. He has all of next season to add to that total. And a lot of conversation will be around Justin Herbert this offseason. Still hasn't won a playoff game. He's been hyped up a lot. He's got all the talent in the world, it appears, but he didn't get it done in his second playoff start. So that was our first game on Saturday. Now, let's pause here to take a second to make sure, if you are watching on X, if you have questions, put them in the chat. Try to answer your questions and comments here shortly. We're bringing the man that has joined me for most of the weeks here on TMA Football, and none other than Philadelphia resident and big fan, Terrell Bush is in the house. Good morning, my guy. How are you? What's going on?
Morning, Rip, man. I'm good. I'm very good, actually. Yesterday, getting a wild card win. It was a tough game, but ultimately we prevailed. And the weekend in and of itself, man. I mean, it ended beautifully last night, with the Commanders beating Tampa Bay last night. But, it started out with a couple blowouts like you started off with your new team, man. Sorry about that loss on Saturday, man. So ready to get into all the games, man. Excited, man. And we finish out tonight with Rams Vikings. So let's get to it.
Yeah, exactly. So just sort of brought into the starting of the weekend with the Texans Chargers game I was talking about, but running it back, I want to go through the game. So I quickly touched on this Texans Chargers game where essentially it kind of flipped, right? The Chargers looked like they were in complete control early. They couldn't punch the ball and got a couple field goals, but game-changing play at the end of the second half there, where it goes from, it looks like CJ Stroud maybe's should be called for intentional grounding. Next play, fumbles, but picks it up on the run, makes a hell of a play. And ever since that play, the Texans kind of take complete control of the game. Herbert throws 4 interceptions, more interceptions than he had all regular season. And it's a completely 180 from what it looked like in the first half. So what's your takeaway moving forward? I think with the Chargers won in the Justin Herbert conversation, what do they need to look at in the offseason? And then what's your thoughts on DeMeco Ryan and that Texans defense showing up biggest in a playoff game that I think many thought that they might lose?
Definitely. I mean, I had the Chargers winning that game as well on Saturday, and it was mainly because the way that the Texans look to close out the season, right? It's hard to gain momentum in the playoffs, right? When you're stepping into the postseason and the way you end off your seasons, it's important that you gain some sort of momentum heading into the postseason. And I just felt like with the Tank Dell injury that Houston sustained at Kansas City, the Stephon Diggs injury and the bevy of other injuries that they've had throughout the year, it just felt like going into the postseason, they didn't have much momentum, but that momentum shifted once that CJ Stroud play happened that you just described briefly just now. And after that, everything flipped. It felt like the physicality was up. the energy throughout the stadium was up, and everything just started to snowball onto the Chargers that went scoreless between the second and third quarters. Ultimately scored in the fourth, but it was just too little, too late at the time. Changing directions to the Chargers, man. I mean, when you look at Justin Herbert, to another playoff flameout. I mean, it's sad to say, we saw him back, like you said, in Jacksonville, where they had I forgot how much lead was that they had went up, but after that, you go ahead and you flame out. What was do you remember that game?
I think it was 20. I think it was like a 27-point lead, 27.
I think it was 27. I was going to say 28. Yeah, it was like a 27, 28 point lead. And you ultimately flame out in that game. And Jacksonville ultimately moves on to Kansas City. And in this one, like you said, favorites in this game, right? The way that they were coming into the postseason, we spoke about it last week. And we both had the Chargers winning this game. So ultimately, when you look at Justin Herbert, it's just a hurdle that he'll have to get over, right? I'm not necessarily selling my stock on Herbert, but the questions are out. Definitely. The verdict is out on Herbert in the postseason because that's back-to-back times we see him with leads in the postseason. Ultimately, he can't close out the deal. And the 4 interceptions definitely 100% hurt the team. So ultimately, man, I mean, they've got a star in Ladd McConkey for sure, 100%. Quentin Johnson is somebody that they can rely on as well. But when you look into the Chargers moving forward, man, I just think Herbert has to get over that hurdle. And I think Jim Harbaugh will have him ready to go moving forward. But ultimately, man, it was a big-time win for the Texans. C.J. Stroud flipped the switch in the postseason, 22 for 33, 282 and a touchdown. Joe Mixon, they established the running game, and Nico Collins showed up and he balled out. So ultimately, great game, but for Houston, but got to go back to the drawing boards if you're LA.
Yeah, LA will have a lot of time this offseason to figure it out. But like you said, Ladd McConkey, certified star, best rookie game in the playoffs in history with his numbers. Justin Herbert, 14 for 32, man. That's going to be a tough one to swallow with those 4 picks. But Houston moves on, and we'll talk about their divisional round matchup with the Chiefs in a little bit. But let's go to the next game, the other AFC matchup, right? And we had that standard matchup that we don't see in the playoffs too often, let's say, but we've seen just routinely throughout the season when you talk about interdivision rivals, the Steelers and the Ravens. And this one was kind of just Baltimore, complete control, domination. Lamar looks great. Derrick Henry looks incredible. They just run down this Pittsburgh team, just like they were kind of mocking them. They had a 13-play, 85-yard touchdown drive where they ran the ball 13 straight times. This felt like playing Madden, the way they were just toying with the Steelers. Steelers couldn't stop them. And it's twofold here. Baltimore, they look great. What are we thinking what do we take from this game? They did this without Zay Flowers. And then ultimately also Pittsburgh. What do they need to change? Do they need to change quarterback? Do they need to change coach? Should it change for everyone to be involved? Because it feels like this is just the standard Steelers. They get you excited during the regular season. They always win, more than games than they lose with Tomlin, but then they sort of flame out as the seasons go along. And it was like nothing new this game. And it doesn't look like whatever Russ was cooking early when he started carried over as he lost, I think, 5 straight to end the season. So thoughts on Pittsburgh, Baltimore?
Well, taking your last points and just talking Pittsburgh as they close out their season, after a tough loss and 5 in a row, like you said, I mean, a lot of questions heading into the offseason if you're Pittsburgh, right? And I've seen it, throughout the media. Is Tomlin on the hot seat? Is Russell Wilson somebody that you bring back? What are the question marks on the offensive side of the football where George Pickens, doesn't he's at the post game presser, he's asking if the offense is going in the right direction moving forward, and he's like, nah, like I don't feel that way. And so it's just like moving forward, what do you do if you're Pittsburgh on the offensive side of the football, right? Is Russell Wilson the answer? And Mike Tomlin, I mean, like you said, they're a winning franchise, but when it comes down to it, like this season and a few seasons back when they won 11 in a row, got everybody excited. Whoa, is this Pittsburgh? Is Pittsburgh going to make sure? Are they going to make it a deep playoff run, right? And they ultimately could not get the job done when you're going up against the top teams in the AFC. So ultimately, with your Pittsburgh, man, you just got to take it back to they always have a good defense, stout defense, sound defense, can always play good football on the defensive side of the football. But when you look at the offensive side of the football, when you look at the offensive line, when you look at the weapons on the outside, is it enough? When you look at the quarterback, can he provide enough throughout the longevity of the season, right? Because like you said, Russell had a hot stretch when it was Russ cook again, and then he flamed out as the season went on. Is Justin Fields the answer? So we'll get a lot of questions answered, as they close out their season, man, and as they head to the draft. But when you flip sides and look at the Ravens, I mean, Derrick Henry, boy, that rushing game, they established a strong rushing game, and they said, we're going to run right at you if we're Pittsburgh. We're going to run right at you, and we're going to see if you can stop us. And Saturday night, they were not able to stop that running game. I mean, 26 carries for Derrick Henry, 186 yards, 2 touchdowns, 7.2 yards per carry, just establishing the ground game. And like you said, straight running play. They're running downfield at him, right at him. Lamar Jackson, right at him. They're going to say, hey, can you stop us running that football? And ultimately, they could not do so. I think they can continue to ride this out into Buffalo and do the same thing against Buffalo and run that football and Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson and playing off the play action. I think they're looking good heading into this divisional round, and it'll be interesting to see what Buffalo attack is to stop them too.
Yeah, we'll get to the preview of the games in a little bit here. So Lamar and Derrick Henry combined for 267 yards on the ground together. As you mentioned, Derrick Henry 186 yards or so plus. And I just want to take a second. You look at Russell Wilson's stats, though. 20 for 29, 270 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. It seems like if you just look on paper and you didn't watch the game, that's a pretty good game. You watch the game and it doesn't match or mirror the stats, and there's something needs to change there in Pittsburgh. I mean, they rushed for totally 31 yards, which is why, or 29 yards total on the ground, which is why I wanted to mention how much Lamar and Henry had, because Pittsburgh totally goes for 29 on the ground. Derrick Henry and Lamar together go for 270. So, yeah, a lot to think about in Pittsburgh. Similarly, like the Chargers, their season's not going to end the way they want it. But Baltimore looked great in round 1, and now we get to see that huge matchup with Buffalo. Let's talk about Buffalo, because Buffalo did a number on Denver. Denver got off the bus, they got the quick touchdown, and then that was it. Buffalo runs off 31 straight. Easy, sort of a game into the halftime, but then Buffalo takes control and really makes easy work of it, which I think a lot of people expected. Good season from Denver, nothing really there to say. But for Buffalo, now it's really what the whole season comes down to. And similarly for Baltimore. So we get Baltimore going to Buffalo. What was your takeaway about what you saw from Buffalo at home versus Denver yesterday morning on Sunday?
I mean, you look at the score early in the game, and you see Denver up 7-0. Deep pass by Bo Nix, man, converts. And ultimately, you're like, whoa, can Denver, they kept it close in the first half, kept it a little close. Buffalo was able to then establish the run, establish the pass game. And little by little, you just saw that they couldn't handle the onslaught that Buffalo was able to provide. I mean, Buffalo used 6 linemen in the game. For context, 5 linemen are normally in the football game, right? 5 linemen at a time. You got your guard, you got your centers, 2 guards, 2 tackles. But for Buffalo, they used an additional offensive lineman to establish the run. And when you do that for a Denver team that has very good skill position players on the outsides, right? They're quick, they're fast, and they're able to get after the quarterback. And Buffalo had a game plan that said, we're not going to let you get to us in the backfield, right? Not allowing them to get to Josh Allen and rush him and hurry him the way that they normally can for other quarterbacks. So ultimately, James Cook goes 23 carries for 120 yards, 96 yards on first down, 5.2 yards per carry. And they were just able to play off that, man, and able to ground and pound. And when you can't stop a team from running the football effectively on first down, that just set up for short second downs, short third and shorts, and you're able to convert easily because you have a guy like Josh Allen who's able to do anything on the football field, make any throw, make any play on the football field. And we saw that he was able to do that yesterday. So, I mean, Buffalo handled business. Josh Allen, 5-1 in wild card playoff game. He's won his 5th straight wild card playoff game yesterday. And it just goes to show you, man, Josh Allen is here. And next week, it'll be a big time matchup between him and Lamar Jackson. And we'll see who can make more plays down the stretch to win those football games. But it was an exciting game, exciting to see for Buffalo and the game plan that they provided.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, spread the ball around, right? So you had 8 receivers catch passes. Everyone questioned Buffalo. How are they going to get over Stephon Diggs? How are they going to look like this season? And what you see is they combine Josh Allen's superpowers, rushing game, and then spread the ball around. Everyone gets involved. You never necessarily know who on the outside, who could be receiving the ball, and so forth. So big win sets up a really exciting matchup next weekend. Let's move to the NFC and what we saw late afternoon and Sunday evening, starting with your Philadelphia Eagles. They kind of beat the Packers. I mean, the Packers came in a little wounded by losing Christian Watson to the ACL injury before the game. They were already down, but it felt like they were dropping like flies in the game. It looked like they had no game plan. I mean, they couldn't score points. And then you have Philadelphia on the other side where they're winning kind of comfortably, but it doesn't feel so comfortable. It feels like fans maybe want a little bit more. What's going on? It's not the most pretty, but hey, it's getting the job done. And obviously Saquon looks good. AJ Brown reading a book on the sideline. All sorts of things happening in Philadelphia, but it's always happening in Philadelphia like that. So takeaway from Philadelphia, and then conversely, we talked about Justin Herbert in the AFC. You got to talk about Jordan Love's performance in this one, where really felt like last year was the coming of age for Jordan Love, especially in the playoffs. And you thought this season could be the continuation. I mean, a lot of talk about him coming into the season. When you think about his entire year, it sort of fizzled down the stretch, and he really never could get it together and get the excitement going. So talk to us about Packers, Eagles, and what you're seeing from your boys.
We'll take the last point first. Talk about Jordan Love quickly before I get in depth about the Eagles. For Jordan Love, he's the first quarterback in Packers history with 0 passing touchdowns and multiple interceptions. 3 interceptions ties his career high. And I mean, he was just hurried, rushed, and made bad decisions throughout the game. Jordan Love is somebody who primarily has a great arm, right, but doesn't have the necessary footwork, or I believe, the footwork to then get out of plays and make good throws down the field. I feel like Jordan Love relies a little too much on his arm strength and his ability to throw the football, kind of similar to Aaron Rodgers, where he has a spectacular arm and he can throw off platform, but Jordan Love does it a little too much, right? He gets himself in situations and makes some decisions that he doesn't have to make. For example, Darius Slay's first interception of the game, when he throws a downfield pass on a screen play where it should have been a throw to the running back that was coming out of the backfield, who was wide open, who would have gained 5 to 7 yards. But when you're a quarterback, you want to show off your pretty arm and you want to get the ball down the field. Sometimes you get yourself in situations that you don't want to be in, similar to the one with Zach Bond and similar to the interception, Quinyon Mitchell's first interception late in the football game. So ultimately, I mean, for Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers, down the stretch, right? Down the stretch, they lost a lot of key players. Christian Watson, like you said, ACL injury. And throughout the game, they faced a lot of injuries as well. Green Bay is a team that likes to play physical at the point of attack. And last night, they just got out physical. Then when we go to Philadelphia, they set the tone early. First play of the game, even though it was a questionable recovery, who wants to say, the Packers got the football, but we ultimately got the football when Oren Burks comes down on kickoff and delivers a beautiful hit to set the tone of the game. At home, Lincoln Financial Field, that's how you wake up the fans. Fans were already woken up 4 in the morning to get down to the game. But when you get a play like that to wake up Philadelphia, it's going to be a long game for you. And it was for Green Bay. Ultimately, I mean, that set the tone of the game. And then we go ahead and score on that possession. It's just from there. 4 takeaways for the Eagles was the most in a playoff game since 2001 Divisional Round. It was pressure in his face. Milton Williams, Nolan Smith, Jordan Davis, and Jalen Carter did a great job last night. The defensive line as a whole, getting in Jordan Love's face, making him uncomfortable and making him throw those ill-advised throws, which ultimately led to 3 turnovers in the back end for the Philadelphia Eagles, like I already alluded to, Darius Slay, Zach Bond, and Quinyon Mitchell. And then when you look at the offensive side of the football, I mean, the question marks all last week, right? Jalen Hurts, is he going to play? We ultimately know that he played last night, started after his concussion that had him out for the last 2 weeks. But I mean, it's kind of the formula that we used all year, right? When the defense is playing as stout as they did yesterday and they were getting as many stops as they did, I mean, when you're on the offensive side of the football, you don't have to do too much, right? We did see A.J. Brown reading on the sideline, and I'll get to that in a little bit. We did see that Devontae Smith had 4 catches. A.J. had 1 catch. Dallas Goedert had a catch as well. But we did enough that we needed to do to win the football game. And like I've been saying since week 1 here on TMA, the hardest thing to do in the NFL is win football games. Philadelphia Eagles won a football game, a playoff football game, and they're advancing to the next round. To close out, A.J. Brown's book, the whole book thing that happened on the sideline, he gave a quote post-game about the book, and he says, "It gives me a sense of peace. That's a book that I bring every single game. That's my first time I've heard y'all got me on camera. It's not the first time that I've had the book." So he's playing.
I have a question on that, though. Yeah. Do we think that's true? He said that it's the first time we caught him, but
right.
You're telling me that we never saw A.J. Brown reading a book on the sideline during a game. We just missed it for 18 weeks. Something doesn't add up on that part of the story. Just
for context, Hurts followed up and said that he's seen A.J. with the book, but he's never seen him reading the book.
Okay.
So for context, he has had the book. The book has been on the sideline with him.
Yeah.
So that has been confirmed by Hurts, but Hurts said he's never seen him physically reading.
See, That's why we need you on the show, so we could get the real actual details from the actual source in Philadelphia. Because I was thinking, man, these cameramen on all of Fox, CBS, and NBC, and ESPN, whatever channel, if they couldn't catch AJ Brown reading on the sidelines of a game until the playoffs, man, they must be like, how did we miss all this? But yeah, I was curious about them. Like, I don't know if we've seen him reading, but that's a new take. I mean, hey, it's better him reading on the sidelines from a book than arguing with a player or something, right? Like that's
Right.
that's preferred. And I would just say this: looking forward, the Eagles are going to need more from AJ Brown, and this isn't on AJ Brown, but they're going to need to get AJ Brown involved. Their team I think. The Eagles maximize their potential when AJ Brown is part of that offense and thriving and humming, and then you have multiple serious weapons from not just Jalen at quarterback running, but Saquon and then AJ Brown. Without AJ Brown at very involved, then I think their upside is a little bit lower. So they're going to need him to take what he's reading, put it on the field, and hopefully get him involved going forward.
For sure. And to that point, I mean, like I said, when you have a team like the Eagles who have a stout running game, the best offensive line, in my opinion, in football, they're able to establish the game at the line of scrimmage, right? And I mean, thus far, we haven't seen a team necessarily stop the Eagles from running the football effectively, right? I mean, Saquon Barkley is 2,000 yards on the season, right? So ultimately, when we're put in a situation that plays need to be had down the field, you're right, Rick. We do have to make those plays. If Minnesota next week or the Rams next week stack the box and say you're not running this football, it's going to be up to Jalen Hurts and it's going to be up to those receivers, like you said, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, so on and so forth, to make Jahan Dotson. Shout out to him for having his first touchdown as a Philadelphia Eagle. But ultimately, those plays will need to be made in order for us to win a championship. I 100% agree with you on that one, Rick.
Yeah, you just say AJ Brown, 1 catch, 10 yards. That can't be the stat line throughout the playoffs for the Eagles to get where they need to go. It's a win. It's what you need, and it sets up a good matchup in the divisional round for Philadelphia as they move forward. Let's finish off with Sunday Night Football, and we get the Commanders in Tampa Bay. Jaden Daniels, I mean, what more can you say about the kid? Just an incredible performance. The game was the best game, in my opinion, of the weekend. It wasn't very close in that it finally gave us a real thrill, and it was back and forth. And at times you thought both teams could win. We saw Baker, rally the troops in the middle there when it looked like Washington was in complete control. And then all of a sudden Tampa gets in control, turnovers, missed fourth downs, made fourth downs. So it kind of had everything. Commanders win 23-20, and Jaden, I think, is the story. And of course, Terry McLaurin, really, really good in the game. And so Washington advances to take on Detroit. What was your takeaway with Washington? So much losing over decades of time, their new ownership, new management, new coach, just a new vibe for Washington that is very positive. And Jaden is really the story. Thoughts from this one?
I mean, easily a remarkable moment for the franchise as a whole, right? Like you said, the playoff drought that they've had, third longest active playoff drought in NFL history, was snapped last night. And the first playoff win for Washington since 2005, who they did it against Tampa Bay, right? So ultimately for Washington, a great moment for the city, great moment for the team and franchise. And everyone involved. I mean, like you said, from day one, and last week, like we said, from day one, I mean, Jaden Daniels has been somebody that has shocked everyone there, right? And it was a pick that they got at as the second overall pick in the NFL draft. And I think if a redraft was done, he would potentially be the first pick in the NFL draft without question. So I mean, ultimately,
hands down.
Hands down. Right. And I mean, Jaden Daniels last night joins Mark Sanchez, Joe Flacco, and Russell Wilson as the only rookie quarterbacks in NFL history to win their playoff debuts on the road. So it just goes to show you he joins an elite list, and all of those quarterbacks, except for Mark's franchise, ended up winning a Super Bowl. Joe Flacco and Russell Wilson specifically. So, I mean, it was the 13th win this season, tied for second most by a rookie quarterback in NFL history. And his sixth win, which came in game-winning score. Their sixth game-winning score came in the final 10 seconds or overtime in games. So this guy is clutch. This guy makes throws in the pocket, out the pocket. This guy makes plays with his legs when you need it done. 4th and 2 with the game on the line, able to scramble out of the pocket, get a first down with the defender coming straight at him. It's just he makes plays after plays, and Terry McLaurin said it post game on ESPN that he's somebody that the team rallied behind, and they believe in him, and the team as a whole believes in Jaden Daniels, man. And it showed last night. He made throw after throw, play after play, and that crucial play by Baker Mayfield on a mistimed snap and ultimately on the sweep was a fumble, changed the whole dynamic of that game. Because if Tampa Bay goes down and scores, they make it a double-digit game, 2-possession game, and then ultimately may not be enough time for Washington to get back in that game. But they made big-time plays and big-time moments, man, and that's what you need on the road. And Jamie Daniels shows he's ready for the moment. And I had Tampa Bay winning this game because it's a tough place to play. It's a tough place to play in, and they've had recent success doing so in the postseason. So ultimately, Jaden Daniels, salute to you, man. You played a great football game. Washington as a whole played a great football game, and they're moving on to the next round against Detroit, and we'll see how that goes.
Hey, just credit to Washington as an organization, everything they've done there. They obviously, had a huge moment for Washington, their fans, and everything that they've been through for the last couple of decades. And it's a new dawn there for the Commanders. And look, 13 wins this season, right? They were 12-5 in the regular season. They get their first playoff win here. That's 13-5. That is no joke. That's not just like you win you're winning lucky or you won a couple more times here or there. I mean, they're winning most of the times they get out there. 13 wins in 18 games. A heck of a rookie campaign for Jaden Daniels. And it's not over yet, right? Because they do get to go to Detroit next Saturday night. We're going to talk about those games in a second, but let's just quickly touch on tonight's game. We wrap up our super wild card weekend, which is just wild card weekend. There's nothing super about it. The games haven't been that, but we get what could be it could be the best game. I know we both were excited about this one specifically, and we get Minnesota at Los Angeles, except because of the devastation, everything that happened in Los Angeles, the game was moved to Arizona. So does you think that affects anything for this game? And has any of your thoughts changed from when we talked about it last week, that this game was taking place, just because it will no longer be in LA, it'll be in Arizona. So it's a little bit more neutral site per se. And then there was a lot obviously going on in Los Angeles that could potentially have affected the Rams somewhat, maybe brought them closer together. People can say both sides, but right. Any thoughts on Minnesota and the Rams to finish off the Super Wild Card weekend tonight?
Definitely. So, I mean, first and foremost, prayers go out to everyone in Los Angeles, with the wildfires and the situation that's going on right now. A lot of people have lost homes, have lost everything. And so my prayers go out to them. I'm thankful that I'm in the position that I am. I'm safe, and a lot of people that I know are safe, but out there in LA, it's not the same for everyone. So I just want to say my prayers and regards out to everybody and the families out in Los Angeles to start off. But things have changed from the last time we spoke, Rip. Like you said, that site is now changed to Arizona. Now they will be playing in Arizona, and that changes things in to my perspective a little bit, because you lose a little bit of that home field advantage, right? You're in a different place, you're in a neutral site, and ultimately that made bold, well for Minnesota. I had the Rams winning this game, and I believe I still do have the Rams winning this game. A rematch in week 7, like we said, where the Rams won 30-7. Matthew Stafford balled out. And like you said, maybe this situation does propel the Rams, right? It brings them closer together with all of the devastation going on in LA. Maybe that puts an extra little bit of spark in them to do it for the home, to do it for their home, to do it for LA. And I believe that, the Rams will continue to do so. They'll bring in that energy. They'll bring in that effort that they brought in from week 7 and the 5-game winning streak that they had to close out the year outside of the loss against Seattle when they rested a lot of their starters. I believe that their offense is rolling at this point in time, and they needed this week. They needed that week of rest. Matthew Stafford, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, specifically Kyron Williams, and those boys on the offensive side of the football. But defensively, they get after it. They've got young studs on that defensive side of the football, and I believe that them going down to Arizona, meeting up with the Vikings, a hot team. Now this could go either way. I'm just going with the underdogs because I believe in the Rams in this situation. But for the Vikings, this is a game for Sam Darnold to throw away what happened in week 18. Toss it out, crumble it up, and toss it out, because this one right here, his career right here could potentially not be on the line, but his future in Minnesota can be on the line. His contract extension and the money that he will be getting could be on the line if he doesn't if he doesn't win this game 1 and flames out 2, like he did in week 18, and did not have a good game in week 18. So it's a lot on the line in this matchup right here, man. This is a good one. This is a fun one. I think it'll be close and to the one that we saw last night, Rip, Commanders Buccaneers. I think it'll be exciting to the finish. And I think we'll have a game tonight that will be excited to watch, man. So definitely looking forward to the game, man, for sure.
T. Bush says Sam Darnold, no pressure. That's right. There's no pressure for Sam Darnold. His entire career is there's a lot that could change with how he performs tonight.
So there's pressure on him tonight, Rip. There's pressure for sure.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying sarcastically. You said you're basically your entire career's on the line. No pressure. But no, there is a lot riding on the line. I think that makes it exciting. There's a lot of excitement in this game because of that pressure. Pressure adds to the tension. It adds to the who knows what we're going to see. So I, for one, am excited. I hope he plays well for his own sake. And you hate to see guys kind of struggle in the prime time. And it happens a lot in the playoffs. And he had a tough one to finish the season. But again, I think there's been a little bit of an overreaction to Minnesota as an entire season. But this is a tough matchup. The Rams are playing well down the stretch. Sean McVay's going to have his boys ready. Tough week. Hard to understand how to read it. Looking forward to seeing who wins tonight's Vikings at Rams games. Regardless, the winner will go to Philadelphia. Let's talk about quickly divisional round of the playoffs next weekend. We start on Saturday. We'll have the Texans at Kansas City. In my opinion, I think this is going to be a pretty good opportunity for Kansas City with all their rest to come out, play well, take care of business. Shouldn't be too difficult. I don't expect Houston to be that threatening. I think that Houston will make it a game for a half or something, but it's hard for me to imagine Houston in Kansas City really doing anything other than showing up and sort of, giving it a good effort. But I just think that Houston doesn't have enough to match what Kansas City does, especially in the playoffs, especially with Kansas City being well rested, ready to go. This team that wasn't able to score earlier in the season, they've got Marquise Brown, they've got DeAndre Hopkins, they've got Juju, they've got a healthy Travis Kelce. It is the playoffs. I expect we're going to see a really good Kansas City team come out of the tunnel this weekend when they take on Houston. I like Kansas City. Is there anything that we should be worried about in that one?
No, you said it all. Texans, it was a good finish to the year, right? I mean, last week beating LA the way that they did. I don't think, like we said, I don't think a lot of people had Houston in that game. I know us specifically, we had the Chargers in that one.
Yep.
But it was a good way to bounce back, a good way to close out last week. But yeah, going into Kansas City, man, I've got Kansas City. Like you said, could make it interesting for a half or so, but a week of rest for Patrick Mahomes, a couple of weeks of rest for Patrick Mahomes, and Travis Kelce, the rest of the offense and the defense, Andy Reid being able to sit back, watch, set up game plans. And now they're fully loaded, fully rested, and ready to roll. And I think they'll come out with that energy that they have for the past couple of years because they've had the 1 seed for a while. So they know how to bounce back coming off of that wild card weekend rest. And I think they'll come in, and I think they'll have a game plan that's set and ready to roll for Houston. It's tough to play in Kansas City. It's tough to play in Kansas City. And I believe, isn't this a rematch of a couple of years ago? I think Mahomes' first year or second year in the playoffs, where they went up against Deshaun Watson and the Houston Texans. And the Texans had that huge lead early in that game. And Kansas City was able to then roar back and ultimately win that game. So it's a rematch, I believe, of a couple of years ago where they did that one.
Yeah, and I think just tossing back the memory, that's when DeAndre was on the Texans.
That is when he was.
Yeah, so we're kind of flip the script here. Now DeAndre is on Kansas City. Texans are down receivers. I mean, they need help outside of Nico Collins on the outside. But look, I think Houston, what they did for beating the Chargers is I think they made their offseason a lot more bearable. I think the questions would have been a lot more intense had they not beaten the Chargers at home. A lot of questions on CJ Stroud's second, season in the league. Did he regress? The comparisons to his season to Bryce Young. I think winning the playoff game and now having back-to-back winning playoff games in his career to start, that's going to give some solace and some peace of mind where he can have a smoother offseason regardless of what happens here. And obviously the injuries took their effect on that offense. So from a Houston standpoint, I think they'll give an effort, but I really like Kansas City to take care of business because they also want to stay ready for what they have coming in the conference championship game, which is going to be whoever wins that Buffalo-Baltimore game, a great matchup for Kansas City in the conference championship. Washington at Detroit to finish Saturday night. Detroit also well rested, number 1 seed in their conference. So what do you think? Can Washington make it exciting? I mean, Washington's played exciting games, or is this going to be too much going up this Detroit team, ready to get it going in the playoffs at home? You know, the crowd's going to be wild. Is it going to be one of those where Washington can actually make this a fight? Or is it going to be sort of Washington is exciting, but it's too much and they get overwhelmed by this Detroit team that looks like they are on a mission?
I mean, Washington is on a magical run this season, right? Like you said, won 13 out of 18 games. And so they've got nothing to lose in this situation, right? They've throughout the season, they've gone up on expectations, right? And ultimately, nobody saw them in this position, making it to the divisional round to start the year. I don't think we saw Washington in this situation. So I think they're coming in with nothing to lose. They're coming in with great energy, great enthusiasm, with great passion. The city's behind them. Jaden Daniels, everything that's going their way. I think they're going to come up in Detroit and they're going to make it a better game than many people I think. Detroit, coming off of rest, having that 1 seed, they're not like it's different, right? That week of rest can do two things to you, right? It can make you come out slow, make you come out a little sluggish, or it can give you the rest that you needed to then go ahead and push through and just be a fast flowing offense like the Detroit Lions are. And I think ultimately what Detroit will we see in that situation? Will Washington come out fast? Will Washington come out quick, get ahead early, and then Detroit will have to crawl back? Or will Detroit just be free flowing, game plan set, ready to roll and come out hot, right? It'll be good to see how Detroit manages that week of rest. But ultimately, I think the Detroit Lions, of course, will win this game. But I think Washington will make it very, very interesting. And Jaden Daniels has something to say for a lot of people, for sure. Because last night's performance going into Tampa Bay, I mean, the way that he played, he looked like a veteran quarterback. And I think he'll have the same poise and the same determination stepping into this next game. So ultimately, it'll be a fun one, man. I'm looking forward to that game for sure because Washington's made things very interesting this whole season.
Yeah, no, they have. And Jaden, you said it yourself. I mean, he looks like a veteran. I mean, he looks like he's been in the league for 10 years. He's so composed, so calm, makes all the right plays, and he's just lethal at the position. He's already one of the elite quarterbacks in football, and it's incredible. And we'll see what he does next weekend at Detroit, his biggest test yet. Let's talk about quickly the final 2 games on Sunday, which we don't know who's going to be in Philadelphia. But just question, from an Eagles standpoint, who do they prefer, or who would you prefer the Eagles match up with? Would it be Minnesota or Los Angeles?
See, now this is going to be the football player, the athlete coming out in me, Rip. And I'm going to say it doesn't matter who lines up in front of us, right? We're going to take on whoever comes through Lincoln Financial Field. Whoever comes through those walls, man, it's going to be up for them because it has to be, right? In this situation, the playoffs are about the next man up. And whoever is the matchup is going to be our matchup. And we're going to take it on. But I like both. Whomever comes out in the matchup, whether it be the Vikings or the Rams, I like us both in both situations, right? And I want to see how Minnesota comes out in this game because they are favored in this game and they should be, right? And they should beat the Rams with everything going Minnesota's way this year and the way they've been playing ball this year. But the way that they come out in this game will show me a lot for next week because the way that we were able to put pressure on Jordan Love is the same way we're going to be able to put pressure up on Sam Darnold, and the same way we'd be able to put pressure on Matthew Stafford. But Matthew Stafford is a veteran quarterback who's been in these playoff situations, who's a Super Bowl champion, who knows how to play in those situations. So ultimately for Sam Darnold, he has questions. How will he come out? It's the playoffs. Will he be rattled? Will he be a little confused? What will we see from Sam Darnold tonight? And that will be able to tell me a lot for next week. And for Matthew Stafford, it's a veteran coming in, somebody that's a grizzled vet, somebody that's a champion, and somebody that knows how to win. So in both situations, I favor the Eagles in those situations. And whoever comes through those walls has got to be up for them because that's how it is. That's the mentality we have. And as a former athlete is coming out in me, Rip, I'm over here sweating, man, ready to roll and ready to get on the field myself if I could. But both teams, man. I don't mind either or.
Yeah, well, no, and I don't think you would mind either or. I mean, they're quite similar at some levels with their offensive philosophies and the way they play. They've got talented wide receivers, so running back. I mean, it's somewhat of a similar matchup. I think the Vikings defense a little bit more blitz heavy. It'll be interesting to see, and I'm looking forward to whoever wins that Vikings-Rams game in Philadelphia next weekend for a great matchup. Any playoff game in Philadelphia is always exciting. And then let's get to the doozy of them all. I mean, this is setting up for one of the great Sunday football games in the playoffs in years. We're going to have Jim Nantz on the call with Tony Romo at CBS, the late Sunday game. You get sort of the two MVP candidates going up at each other. They should have an MVP belt and just give it to the winner here. But it's going to be Baltimore in Buffalo. We saw Baltimore early this season really dominate Buffalo, but it's the playoffs. It's different. Lamar's got the playoff conversation around him. Can he get there finally? You got Josh Allen. Can he carry the troops and get Buffalo there? It's going to be incredible in Buffalo late Sunday. What are your thoughts as we just see a game that could set up to be an all-time classic?
Man, this game right here, Rip, like you said, two MVP candidates going up against each other, fighting it out, dueling it out for a chance to advance in the AFC Championship game. I mean, what else could you want more out of this divisional round weekend that we're going to get? And they did it perfectly, scheduling it on Sunday Night Football. So it's the last game that we'll watch before we get back on TMA next week. And I am so excited for it because it's Josh Allen, it's Lamar Jackson, it's Derrick Henry, it's James Cook, it's the ball players on both sides of the ball, and they're going after it and they're clashing, right? Doug McDermott versus Harbaugh. It's a chance to advance to the AFC Chip to see who will play Kansas City for a chance to get to the Super Bowl, man. And what more can you want out of this, right? We want to see this matchup. This is the matchup that we would hope to see when you look at both candidates this year, MVP candidates this year, Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, two of the best quarterbacks in the league, dueling it out, man, right? In the postseason, this is what you want if you're a football fan. These are the matchups that you want to see, and we're going to get to see it, right? But in this matchup specifically, when you look at it from an X and O standpoint, in week 4, when Buffalo and Baltimore played, when Buffalo went to Baltimore, they just established the run game the same way that they did against Pittsburgh this weekend. Derrick Henry had 24 carries for 199 yards and a touchdown, right? Lamar Jackson had a great stat line as well, going 13 for 18, 156 yards and 2 touchdowns, but only threw the ball 18 times because what did they do? They handed the ball to Derrick Henry. Lamar Jackson had 6 rushes for 54 yards and a touchdown in and of himself. So can Buffalo stop the rushing game by Baltimore? Can they establish the game at the line of scrimmage and bring it to them? They're going to Buffalo, right? So you're gonna have the home fans with you. It's gonna be roaring. You know Bills Mafia and how you're getting them at home field. So ultimately for Buffalo, it's really that. If Baltimore can establish the game at the line of scrimmage, run the football effectively, and work off the play action, I'm not sure Zay Flowers' status. I'm sure we'll get that as the week goes on, but that's the game right there. If Baltimore is able to out-physical Buffalo at the point of attack, they'll ultimately win this game. But for Josh Allen, man, if the defense can then hold Baltimore the way that they can, and if Josh Allen is able to make plays similar to how he did yesterday, I think they win this football game. He can't go 16 for 29, 180 yards like he did in week 5. He has to go otherworldly in order for him to win this game because Baltimore is just a more talented football team, right? They have more talent on both sides of the football, fully healthy, right? And Buffalo has talent, but ultimately this will come down to Josh Allen and if Buffalo can establish a game at the line of scrimmage against Baltimore. But other than that, man, 427 total yards for Baltimore in that matchup. The defense is going to be in for one this game, and they need to make sure that they contain Lamar Jackson. And if Derrick Henry's, you can't allow Derrick Henry and Lamar to go off in this game, right? It has to be one or the other. Can't have both of them go off. And if they both go off, it'll be a tough ball game. But for Josh Allen, I think he shows up to the occasion, man. And I think we'll see a performance from Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson that makes this one an instant classic.
Yeah. Hey, instant classic. Those are the 2 words that keep coming to my mind when I think about this matchup. And as football fans, it will be a great way to finish divisional round weekend. And really, whoever wins that Buffalo-Baltimore game is then going to go to KC and set up a fantastic conference championship. That is, I'm not trying to count Houston out, but just my projection here that I think Kansas City will be in that game. But yeah, so I cannot wait to see the Josh Allen, the Lamar Jackson matchup, and the storylines coming from it are going to be incredible. Hopefully they play well because what a doozy it will be. Divisional round playoffs are set up to be a good one. We've got one more tonight. We talked about it. We've done everything we can do for Super Wildcard Weekend. We will see you next week. Bush, talk to us about where we can find your stuff, and we will see you next week for another Teammate Football.
Yes, sir. So on Instagram at BTB Sports, posting a lot from this past weekend. I do another show Football Talks with Bush, with my guy Walt, who's on with me weekly. Post clips from the show with Rip as well. So got a lot of stuff coming out. I still have to post that clip that I sent you, Rip, from the Vikings-Rams game that we selected as a top game for this week. So I'm going to post that and going to post some others. But find me at BTB Sports on Instagram and Pro Football Post, where we post a lot of our articles and a lot of the things that are going on behind the scenes on the field that then equate to the stuff that comes on the field. So follow us at Pro Football Post on Twitter, BTB Sports on Instagram. Appreciate the followers, appreciate the support, and Rip, thank you, man. Looking forward to next week, bro.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure to see you. Thanks for coming by again. And we got another great one tonight. We will talk to you next week. All right. So that's a fantastic the morning after football 4-hour super wild card weekend. Again, not so super this wild card weekend. It felt like a lot of the games missed the mark. It was not as exciting as it could be, but hopefully we'll finish up that weekend tonight with the Monday night game. Again, the Rams, the Vikings from Arizona, because of the affected damage and situation going on in Los Angeles, which obviously as a resident for over a decade, I send my prayers and thoughts to everyone, and just such a sad and tough time for what you've seen just from images, from videos, and in general. So hopefully, again, our hearts and prayers go out to everybody affected by the really just damaging and devastating fires that almost seem incomprehensible to imagine that they could go on in such a massive place and they just continue. And there's so many thoughts there, but hopefully you stay safe. And hopefully if you have been affected, things will start to look up in any way possible, because I can't imagine it. Okay. For January the 13th, Monday, another the morning after football, this time the playoff edition. Always a pleasure. Thanks again to Terrell Bush. As he told you, follow him at Pro Football Posts. Follow me at Michael Rippey on X, on YouTube. You can catch us on Instagram in case the show is streaming there. It's always a pleasure to talk football with you. We'll see you next weekend for a wrap up of the divisional round. Till then, thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time.